I must rise above the flames.
Welcome back, Flick Knaves. I'm Lupinefiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we are playing Cindra, Dracai of Retribution. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Empire. What we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, giving my thought process for the lines I would take, and comparing those to the lines I did take at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you like what you see and would like to try this deck for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see every new episode of Daily FaB Gameplay in your YouTube feed. I also have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description. Patrons at the Arc Lightning tier or higher will get access to all of my matchup guides for all of my deck lists forever, including this one. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the gameplay. I'm back with another game played with Yukili Bender's Redline Cindra deck from Calling Memphis. Deck is insane, looking to get reps with it in order to make more informed choices about updating my own Cindra deck. This game is played against New. I wanted to show this off, despite it being a win, because New and the Assassin class in general is touted as one of the answers to Redline Cindra, which historically is true. Disruptive Assassin is very good against Draconic Ninja. FaB had a hard time with Uzuri back in the Bright Lights meta, and there are more assassin tools, better assassins now than there were back then. And we're going to take a look at how I navigate this game against New, and the outcome may surprise you. So we won the die roll, we've chosen to go second. The reason for that is we really want to be able to block on turn 0, and New blocks well enough that we aren't pushing damage over the top on turn 0, so if we can just put a bunch of cards in front of whatever New does, then that is actively good for us. We get the first opportunity to crack back. New just passes the turn, which is kind of good for us. This hand is fine. We'll send the Ronin Renegade, Rising Resentment. If the Resentment hits, we banish Art of the Dragon Fire and just play it for 5. If it doesn't hit, we can Flick Knives. If New has damage prevention, then she's the greatest Flesh and Blood player. If she does not have damage prevention, then we are going to get one over the top. With our Flick Knives, we can use our Blood Splattered Vest to make a resource. This is a tricky decision, and if I could go back, I don't know that I would make the same play. The reason being that we are now open to an offensive passover. We're open to defensive passover kind of no matter what. If we had a third Draconic Link on this chain, we could activate Cindra, attempt to retrieve our kunai. New could respond by playing passover and banishing our dagger so that Cindra just resolves but doesn't have a target. But in this case, we are opening ourselves up to the Clave not really being a good answer, but say that this was Mark of the Black Widow, Persuasive Prognosis, Bonds of Agony, just something blue that New can then play passover on. Mark of the Funnel Web being a great example. If New passovers here, then she not only creates a chi in order for Mask of Recurring Nightmares, but also banishes our dagger. And if we had put New into a position last turn where she had to play the passover just by itself, we would lose our dagger either way, but New wouldn't have a chi. So in this situation, because we have our Wax On in Arsenal, I'm fine blocking with Flight Path here. That isn't true. I like blocking with Breaking Point here. We keep our flight path blocked for a different one power attack. If New has Just a Nick, then we can Wax On over the top in order to cover 6 with 8. If she banishes, if she has the Chi, then we can just banish our second Breaking Point and send 5 points of damage. But we'll see what New has. We're really hoping it isn't Passover. If it is Passover, then we just lose a dagger. We're not going to... I guess we could actually, if this is Passover, we could pitch Yellow Brand and Breaking Point to Cindra to bring our dagger back, and then have our here's Ronin Renegade for 3. We do need to block this though. I don't want to use Wax On for this. Okay, so here's the Passover. So here is where we are in kind of a weird situation. I am going to make the wrong play by just letting this happen and then banishing my Breaking Point. And what I would like to do instead is respond to the Passover by pitching Brand and Breaking Point. Then we just banish Ronin Renegade to the Mask of Recurring Nightmares and just pass the turn, right? Nothing happens. Here what we should do is actually banish our Brand with Cinderclaw, and then on our turn, play Breaking Point by pitching Ronin Renegade. We deal 5 damage either way, but we keep a card in our deck, which is potentially relevant against New. Here we get to push a little more damage. This is still just 5. It does open us to Undercurrent Desire, which would be a very ballsy play from New, spending 2 cards to banish our second dagger, but would still be a good play if she can put us down to 0 daggers. And that is why we keep a card in deck anyway, because we're pitching Brand with Cinderclaw, but I'd rather have the Ronin Renegade than a Yellow Brand. We do Flick Knives, we push more damage, we are going to activate Cindra, we're going to hope that there's no Undercurrent Desires, and there isn't. New lets us have our dagger back, and we draw into a hand that kind of works okay. We will pitch our Art of Dragonfire, play attack with Kunai. We can then follow up with Burning Blade Dance, Blaze Headlong, Lava Burst, Flick Knife somewhere in there when we need to keep our momentum chain going. Because New has pitched levels to this Mistblade, I'm kind of suspecting that she has another levels, and I want to deny her the easy go again so that she can choose draw a card. So I am going to block this Mistblade with my Flight Path and still attempt to hold these 4 cards in my hand, still having this Wax On for something like Prognosis or Leave No Witnesses. What does get us here is Command and Conquer, though we could think about blocking it. Instead we have Mark of the Black Widow. We are still marked. Unfortunately, this 1 power attack is very annoying. We don't need to block this from hand. We can block this with Wax On from Arsenal. What is unfortunate is if New has the Justinic, then we still take 1 because we're blocking 5 on 6. If New has a Transcend instant, then this turn gets a little awkward too. If New has the Transcend instant, we should probably banish Lava Burst. We will play our Wax On here. I'm expecting that New has something to do at this point. Be it a Transcend instant, being Justinic, be it using Shoes. We do get a point of value on that because New hadn't blocked with the Stilettos yet, so not bad. And then Prognosis here coming in for 1. We're not going to block this. It'd be nice if we could, but if New has Justinic or a way to get it over the top, then we are kind of in trouble. The best card here that New could leave us with is Blaze Headlong, which is why I suspect that she won't let us keep Blaze Headlong. Maybe we should have blocked, and if New had Justinic, we put her on having used it on the Mark of the Black Widow, and if we block the Prognosis and it doesn't hit, the New only gains 1 life, not 2. That's probably the best thing we could have done. We should have blocked this Prognosis with Lava Burst and just say that if New had the reaction, she would have already used it. So this does seem like a misplay, and New even taking our Blaze headlong just makes our turn that much worse. I don't like to Arsenal against Assassin if I can avoid it, because I don't want their Leave No Witnesses and Command and Conquer to have text, but this is a turn where we can't really avoid it. I think that sending the Kunai is a mistake. What I would have liked to do is pitch the Lava Burst to play Art of Dragonfire, and then Arsenal the Burning Blade Dance to potentially have a wider turn next. Here we're kind of priced into one of two things. We either use our Vest to generate a resource to buy back our single dagger and Arsenal the Lava Burst, or we keep our Vest counter and just play Lava Burst for 2 to put a second Draconic Link on the chain. And this is where I feel like I'm really losing value in the new matchup, and I need to get more experienced with it, because I'm not prioritizing keeping my daggers to play around Passover and Undercurrent Desires, and I'm also not playing around just maximizing value from small hands that aren't triggering momentum. So we could have just been fine by playing the Art of Dragonfire and arsenaling a card, just how we could have been fine just playing Breaking Point on a previous turn and arsenaling our other starter. But we do use Stains. We are going to pick up our dagger. New's thinking here, so we're going to see if she has the Undercurrent Desire, and it turns out that she does not. We will just arsenal our Lava Burst and see if we can put a 5-card turn together on our next turn, or maybe even just a 4-card turn, but we had to block with something. Our hand here is great. Oath of Loyalty, Burning Blade Dance, Display Loyalty, Lava Burst, Flight Path Lava Burst is really good. Here we do not have a helpful 1 block to cover up the Mistblade, and here we see that we potentially chose wrong on our last turn. We'll see what New's follow-up is. Maybe this is the turn where she had the Levels of Enlightenment. Instead, using Tunic for Clave. We are never blocking Clave, even if there was a fire. Our equipment doesn't cover it unless we use Mask of Momentum. New is at 30 health. Us being marked is kind of unfortunate, but at a certain point, we gotta just make New have it. We're not gonna block this Mark of the Black Widow, because we can just banish our Lava Burst from hand and still have one in our arsenal. We are still looking at a 4-link Lava Burst turn. And we'll just see whatever New's last card is. Apparently nothing. So we will fire off this Oath of Loyalty. Now, what does this tell us? It could tell us that New has multiple defense reactions, and we see Shelter from the Storm being used from Arsenal. What is interesting about that is New used Tunic to attack with Clave. So if she had maybe a Sink Below in hand that she just chose to take an IP for, she could have just pitched that to Clave, so maybe she doesn't have the Sink Below. But then what else would she have kept? It could be Undercurrent Desire, and she is waiting for us to just throw a dagger. Maybe that's supposed to be our warning sign that we don't flick the dagger here. We don't need to yet. We wouldn't have done it on the first chain link. We can do it here because we are going to force New to block another attack, which we really want her to do. We're going to play our Burning Blade Dance, and then we'll play Lava Burst from Arsenal. At some point, we'll look to pick up our dagger. Here is the Sink Below, so maybe New was just taking the intellect penalty because she valued having multiple defense reactions available. We'll see if she blocks this Lava Burst. She does not, and this is where we're going to attempt to pick up our dagger. New allows us to do so. Let's see what she does with these 2 cards. Just playing Leave No Witnesses, we don't care. We're not going to block this. Our turn is going to be pitch Lava Vein Loyalty, attack with Kunai, play Hot on Their Heels, play Burning Blade Dance, flick a dagger somewhere in there, pick up the dagger, Arsenal Shelter. Just looking to maximize Mask of Momentum, get blocks away from New. New here, discarding Shelter is fine. This does sync up not only the Kunai, but our Flick Knives. That said, New still needs to care about some of these attacks. Getting a full Sink Below for Hot on Their Heels is good value for us. We're still going to attack with Burning Blade Dance. We're still going to flick, even if it isn't dealing damage, because we need to get it into our graveyard so that we can activate Cindra. Grab our Kunai, Arsenal, Shelter from the Storm, and just pass the turn. New pitching Codex to attack with Clave, never blocking it. Our hand is great. We get to... is our hand great? We actually need to take a look at this. So Oath of Loyalty is going to lock us out of playing Fire Tenant unless we use our Fealty. We definitely could use Fealty. I believe we have 2 Demonstrate Devotions and 2 Demonstrate Devotions, 2 display loyalties in our deck. These naming conventions, I'll tell you. We do have more ability to make Fealty for our Art of Dragon Fire and Blood. So we don't need to necessarily overvalue it here. We could just play out these 4 cards. And our sequencing is probably something like Oath of Loyalty, Ignite, Dagger, Fealty, Fire Tenant, Ronin Renegade. We're pushing 4, 7, 10, 14 points of damage with multiple Mask of Momentum triggers. I think that's a good use of Fealty, otherwise we're just blocking this Dagger with our Fire Tenant Strike first. We can actually think about what this turn looks like. So Oath of Loyalty, Ignite, Dagger. We are not threatening Mask of Momentum on our 3rd chain link. Fealty Fire Tenant says that we are threatening it on our 4th chain link, then we can Flick Knives, then Ronin Renegade threatens Mask of Momentum. That's where we can pick up our Dagger. I do think that keeping these 4 cards and using our Fealty is good. It threatens 14, News at 24, does not have any blocking armor left unless she wants to give us her mask, which would be a big win for us. So just pushing 14 is fine. We're not going to use our Shelter on a Clave. And Fire Tenant just represent 4 points of damage and a Mask of Momentum trigger, and I think that is more important than using it to block here and staying unmarked. I can see why I would make the play, because we still get to go Oath, Ignite, Dagger, Ronin. We're threatening a Mask of Momentum trigger. Maybe New even gets a little skittish and blocks the Ignite. Giving us a Hiss instead is okay for us. That's a hit on the chain. So we'll see if we're going to get more blocks. And we're getting another 3 block. Maybe New just holding on to a handful of reds. Using the Flick Knives here makes sense. I think that we are better off threatening Mask of Momentum than we are getting 1 point of damage. If we don't flick there and choose to attack with the Dagger, then our Mask of Momentum cannot trigger. So here is where we will pick up our Dagger. And I believe where we got by Undercurrent Desires. So New sitting on that Desires for a few turns, setting up the banish of our 2nd Dagger. The Red Line Cindra list has no extra daggers. We have no Concealed Blade. There is no way to get a dagger back. Here we see the Undo from New, as I confusedly think that I misunderstand what Undercurrent Desires does. We are now down daggers, and that sort of makes us feel okay about having used 2 charges of Vest so far, but it does kind of put the onus on us to continue to draw hands that function. It also explains why New has been blocking so aggressively on that previous turn, giving us the 2 red hisses and giving us Leave No Witnesses in order to just prevent damage, is that New is trying to fatigue us because we have no more daggers. Our deck has lost its inevitability from Flick Knives and has lost its ability to really just pop off with the resource that we generate from Vest. So a few things happen here. We can no longer fix a bad hand by pitching to a Dagger. If we draw 4 Lava Vein Loyalties, we don't have Go again, because we don't have a Draconic Chain Link to kick things off. It also means that we kind of value pitching a lot more. If we can pitch reds to play reds, then we like that, because that means that we can put cards back into our deck to maybe not get fatigued. We are up 8 points on New, we have the Shelter from the Storm, we have more defense reactions in our deck, maybe there is a world where we can just aggro our way out of this. I would like to check Nu's discard here to see how many defense reactions we've seen. I believe it's 2 shelters, 2 sinks. So maybe we can just push damage. I mean, Mask of Momentum is still around. I like maximizing value on this hand. Ignite, Demonstrate, Display Loyalty, Art of the Dragon Blood. We hoard our fealties from this point on because Art of the Dragon Fire, great way to end the game if Nu is just aggressively blocking, and Art of Dragon Blood is a card that will pay for our 1 costs. Playing the Display Loyalty here makes a second fealty. We even get a block from Nu. I'm going to IP myself and just hold on to this Dragon Blood, because getting 3 block from Nu, cool, she doesn't have a hand. We don't care about her hand. She doesn't have the ability to Codex Ciencias here. She can Codex Leave No Witnesses, but then we play our shelter. What I am more concerned about, considering that I have multiple fealties, is my ability to just play 1 costs as I draw them, and Art of Dragon Blood is the way that we can just play 1 costs. So similar situation, depending on how Nu blocks the Oath of Loyalty, Brand with Cinderclaw, Blaze Headlong, swap those, Blaze, Brand. Depending on how Nu blocks these, I may just keep the Art of Dragon again. If she's going to give me multiple cards, then I really like holding on to Art of Dragon Blood as a way to just pay for my attacks. At this point, Nu is holding on to cards, and that makes me scared. If she plays Command and Conquer, then I'm kind of unhappy. I don't know that I agree with the decision to hold Art of Dragon Blood there. We can block this Prognosis with our Flick Knives because it is no longer active. It doesn't do anything. We're going to have to banish a card to Mask of Recurring Nightmares. It's just Lava Vein Loyalty. Brand turns on our Art of Dragon Blood for as much as that might matter. Ravenous Rabble is going to attack for 4. This is a situation where we can use our Shelter from the Storm. We want to prevent Nu from gaining life. We also now desperately want to hold on to our cards because we need to just push damage. The fact that we have played Brand with Cinderclaw and not followed with Art of Dragon Blood, and the fact that we are only on 3 cards in hand, means that I want to attack with Art of Dragon Blood. I do not want to arsenal it. I don't want to arsenal anything anymore because I cannot afford to lose cards to Leave No Witnesses or Command and Conquer. We've seen, I believe, 2 codexes pitched, which means that we can expect to not see one for a while. I am more concerned about keeping my cards safe than I am about protecting from Codex of Frailty. I might want to block this with Vest at this point just to prevent Levels of Enlightenment, which I do not believe I have seen one played yet. I have seen 1 pitched, and we've gone through more than half of Nu's deck without seeing a second. So it is pretty reasonable that this could be a Levels, and that Vest would shut that down. I choose to let the Mistblade hit and immediately get punished by Levels for 4, go again, draw a card. That said, we do not care about our life total. We cannot afford to block anything ever, unless it's with a Wax On, but even the Wax On, I would like to just put in my arsenal and insulate from Codex of Frailty, but also insulate from Leave No Witnesses. So we'll see what Nu draws into. If it's something I have to care about, we draw into a really nice hand where we get to Tenant, Rising Resentment, Display Loyalty. We do not care about the Art of Desire. Maybe we should have. Maybe that was the card I'm supposed to block with Blood Splattered Vest. Nu is not going to gain life or draw a card because we have no blues in our deck, but she does banish something off the top, which, as I keep emphasizing, is important. We need cards in deck. So I actually think that was a mistake. That is where we should have used Vest, to just maintain cards, because that is Nu's win condition. That is why Nu is blocking so aggressively. We don't pitch, and Nu does. So if we are just sending our attacks every turn, eventually we're going to leak damage over. Nu will run out of 4 blocks, and we get over with Rising Resentment for 4, Blaze Headlong, Art of Dragon Blood. We have some breaking points and Art of Dragon Fire left in our deck. But, well, we don't have breaking points, I just saw 3. But New can keep cards in deck, and we can't do it easily. So it was very important to keep that Art of Dragon Blood off of that Art of Desire. So I do think that was a value leak on my part. And here we draw into some defense reactions, so we are insulated from certain effects, Leave No Witnesses, Surgical Extraction, Persuasive Prognosis. This Rotten Remains feels really bad for New at this point because we don't have any daggers for her to banish. She does, however, get to get us with the Mask of Recurring Nightmares. We're just going to banish a Shelter from the Storm, which is the worst card in our hand. We get to fire off Brand with Cinderclaw, play Ancestral Empowerment, try to draw into something decent. If we could draw into a 1-cost attack, that's probably the best thing we have because we can then pitch a Lava Burst for it. We do have to play the Empowerment here. We find Art of Dragon Blood, which is pretty nice because we do get to just play it and also hold on to a fealty. The question is, do we want to hold on to this Lava Burst or attack with it? It only attacks for 2. So I do like holding on to it. We have armor that we can block with. We also have a defense reaction. And it itself is a 3 block. So I would have preferred to hold it there. I think that pitching it was actually a mistake. And I understand that it lets New attack with Mistblade, which then lets Prognosis block attack for 2 with Go again. Or New pitches the Prognosis, attacks with Clave, and now Mark of the Black Widow is online because we're marked. But I think that holding onto the Lava Burst there would have been nice. I also think that this is a turn where we should block with Vest. We shouldn't just fire off Wax On, or we should at least look at New's discard and see what her Justinet count is. We've got a Mask of Recurring Nightmares effect, so we need to banish something. Currently, our hand does not convert very well. We don't have a way to turn on Hot on Their Heels because we have no Draconic Starter. So I think Ancestral Empowerment is probably the worst card in our hand. We just want attacks, but I could also see a world where we want Empowerment to push 1 point of damage over the top and deal lethal. The banish here probably supposed to be Hot on Their Heels, and then our turn is Ravenous Rabble for 4 Go again, pitch Ancestral Empowerment for Breaking Point for 5. I was definitely thinking about it there. Let's see what I ultimately decide to do. The line is going to be Ravenous Rabble Breaking Point. It just matters, what do I want to pitch? And I choose Hot on Their Heels. I don't know that was correct, and in fact I think it was probably wrong. Here we are going to Breaking Point for 5. We will see how many cards New wants to give us on defense. What is very notable about this game is we have only seen 1 Art of the Dragon Fire, which means that New is effectively dead at 4. We have 4 fealties. We also have our Flight Path. We can double Dragonfire in the same turn if we have the links for it. So New just needs to stay above 4 or else she is dead and cannot interact with it. She just pitched Homage. We've seen all of her shelters, so she is dead if we find Dragonfire, which means that our win con is just live. I'm not going to block the Clave because New does not have the ability to get anything over the top of my Wax On and Arsenal. Here we are going to banish. We are happy to banish our Lava Vein Loyalty, and then our turn is Rising Resentment, pitch Hot on Their Heels, play Demonstrate Devotion, which again presents a breakpoint that New needs to care about. It makes a fealty, even though that doesn't really matter. And it also lets us pitch, which is important. We need to keep cards in deck as much as possible. So, fire off the Rising Resentment. We're also hoping to get New into a state where, yes, she is banishing with Mask of Recurring Nightmares, but also she just doesn't have cards that block. Notably, as she is shuffling with Stir the Pot, she might just have Chi in hand, and if she just has Chi that can't block, she takes damage. And now we are at that point where she is at 2. We have 7 cards left in deck. 2 of them are Art of Dragonfire. We will not die to damage, So we just need to pressure new, and that means that we can start blocking with armor potentially. The Hunter's Clave just remarks us. We were already marked, so I don't feel like blocking that is particularly relevant. We also happen to have a shelter if we wanted to use it, not that we do. 4 here is more important than 3. It also gives us something to banish to the Mask of Recurring Nightmares. I think it should have been Wax On because we have one in Arsenal. We don't need 2. But even so, the Wax On in Arsenal is fine, and then we get to Arsenal a different Wax On. We send 8 on our turn. Fire Tenant for 3, Blaze Headlong for 5. New has to care about all of this. She has to give us 3 cards. Maybe she gives us Mask of Recurring Nightmares, though I doubt it, because to her that is her win condition, that she gets to make us banish things. Just doing a quick check at this point for Art of Dragonfire, because I have correctly identified that I just win the game if I resolve one of those. So we'll see how New wants to deal with this Blaze Headlong. Giving us Recurring Nightmares and Venomous Bite makes me wonder if she has Chi in hand that cannot block, or if she otherwise needs her hand for something. We're going to see what her turn is. We draw into our Dragonfires, so we do just win from this point. We're not blocking. We need to save cards for whatever the follow-up is. Here is Leave No Witnesses, which we do get to block with our Wax On. I do not believe there's any card in New's deck that she would play from Arsenal that could banish a card from our hand. The only thing being Siren's Call, which cannot take a card from us. I'm also looking at my hand and just trying to think if I can double Dragonfire on the same turn, just in case New has life gain somehow. Pitch Brand, play Art of Dragonfire. Float a resource. We need to pay 2 into Flight Path. I don't believe there's a way to do it. We could play Brand, red, pitch Brand, yellow for Art of Dragonfire. Then we pay a resource into Flight Path, and that means that we can't play the other Art of Dragonfire. It probably is better to start with Brand with Cinderclaw red, just get something out of New, just in case, and then play Art of Dragonfire, pitching yellow. We keep a fealty, and then we also arsenal our second Art of Dragonfire. That is what I'm going to choose to do. If New can somehow survive the 2 damage from fire, then she still needs to block 5, which means that we're probably getting 3 cards from her and can just insulate our arsenal. Shoot New for 2, see if she has it, and in fact she does not. So I wanted to show this game because it was sick. It was sick, but it also shows off the power of this deck and how, admittedly, we drew very well. We never drew a brick hand. I also think New might have been wrong to try to fatigue us so heavily. She should have just been more disruptive and done basic New things. But we lost our first dagger on turn 2. We lost our second dagger on turn 7. And we won the game on turn 16. This deck has a lot of power. And just because you lose your daggers doesn't mean you're out of it. It also, doesn't excuse you from playing recklessly with your daggers, which I did. And that is a point of growth that I have. But you are certainly not out of it. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. If so, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free. It helps me out a lot. I have a Discord, a Blue Sky, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description below. Until the next time I see you on Daily FaB Gameplay, take care.